You're now tuned into the First and 10 podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and I'm pleased to be joined by a special guest, host of the MuambaMoments, CFL first-round draft pick in 2011. Most outstanding Canadian. He's done it all. He's just done it all. This is Henoc Muamba. How are you doing? He who knocks. Really pleased to have you on the show today, man.
Thanks for having me on, Brandon. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. So I know you're residing in Brampton now, of course, now signed with the Toronto Argonauts. I even mentioned that. So many different titles, but linebacker for the Toronto Argonauts back home, of course, where kind of all started in this sense. But I wanted to get to know your football journey, right? Your football journey from the start, where it all started. I'm very aware that you, of course, came when you're 7 years old from the Republic of Congo. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're coming here. It's pas français aussi. It's probably pas français. Obviously,
alone.
Absolutely. So, firstly, when you're 7 years old, coming to the country of Canada, I believe your family resided first in Quebec because it was a French-speaking country. You had family here. Do you remember your first interpretation of being in Canada? Do you remember your first experience of being in Canada, just in general?
It's a little hazy, but it was just something new, to be honest with you. The truth is, for me, whenever I look back, the truth is, I had so many changes in environments that it was just another change to me at the time, right? It didn't really click, it didn't fully make complete sense until I kind of started to see differently and kind of grew a little older. But at the time, I know even in the span of the little bit of time that I spent, born in the Congo, and by the time we left, it was around 7 years old. I had gone to already maybe 2-3 different schools. We lived at a few different houses in the Congo, and environments kept changing as well, even down there. So, to me at that stage, at that point in my life, moving to a whole nother continent, it was just really another change of environment for me, but obviously one that would have been a lot more different than everything else. Your first winter, all that stuff is that's really foreign to the continent of Africa. Was definitely one of the biggest shocks after coming into Canada.
No, I totally understand that, and especially too. I remember reading an article where you said, my family came from the Congo to, kind of for a better future for myself and my brothers and of course, my siblings coming forth. But from going from Quebec, and then, you had some family, of course, in Ontario as well, and you land in Mississauga. So you grew up in Mississauga. And I remember reading as well, too, you love to play basketball. Everything was just about basketball in general at the start. Do you remember when you first, where it kind of changed, where, basketball and football kind of was integrated into your life? I know you started playing it around 15, 16 years old. Is that true?
Yeah. So it was everything. It was all kinds of sports initially. I know coming into, I didn't play much sports. I watched a lot of basketball really growing up. And then afterwards, when I first when my family moved to Ontario, it was really, I got involved in sports as a way to kind of get acclimated to the new environment, as a way to make friends, and as a way to just try new stuff. To be honest with you, it wasn't even me trying, because I was a very, reserved, kept to myself, didn't talk much. But it was my teacher, her name was Miss Evans. And she would always tell me, hey, you're athletic enough. And she was my first teacher in Ontario. As a matter of fact, I visited her a couple of years back, a couple of seasons ago at her school. I tracked her down, and I just wanted to thank her. But she was awesome and very instrumental in me really getting involved in athletics. My first school that I went to when I was in Ontario was, when we first, got established in Ontario, was Metro Andre Catholic School, which is in Mississauga. And from there, like I said, Miss Evans, I was just this young boy who had just come into the school, and she was my homeroom teacher. I could barely speak a word of English. And, she spoke so fast, but I had a really good class who was very welcoming, encouraging, and never really shamed me for, quote unquote, not necessarily knowing the language as well as them. And so my teacher would literally tell me whenever, each season would begin, hey, look, there's basketball, you should try it. There's volleyball, you should try it. And I did everything, literally. Track and field came, and I have a funny story about that because she would tell me, hey, you should do track. And I would go and I'd try it out. Hey, you should run the 100 meters. I'd try it out. I wasn't the fastest, but I was pretty good at it. I'd try it out. Once you try the 200, and I did it. Go for the 400. I would do it, and then the 800. And the more it get longer and longer, I'd still do it, but I wouldn't have as much fun anymore until she even made me do the 1500. I was out there gassed, just couldn't even, breathe and everything. And that was the first time I told her, like, listen, I'm not doing this at all. And it was funny, but yeah, she literally made me try every single sport out there. And sure enough, it ended up helping me as far as integrating myself with the new environment that I was in, meeting some friends and some people, making friends, and just developing some confidence in myself as well. I think it played a huge role in my life at that point.
Absolutely.
But at that point, football was not even on the horizon.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and know yourself with two young girls as well, Tia and Adia, I believe.
Tia and Ada.
Instilling all of of course, of what sports kind of teaches you, and kind of it builds your character in many ways, right? So you're probably trying to instill that in your kids right now at a young age, right? So that's something that you definitely have. But other than that, going from Quebec, sort of Congo, then of course coming to Quebec, and then had this, meeting Miss Evans, and Miss Evans putting you into a bunch of different sports and whatnot. It probably helped having like coaching, having your brother as well there with you doing kind of the same things and kind of going through this journey together. But going from there and now kind of stretching a little bit towards the high school avenue. If I were to say the name Gary Waterman to you, what exactly what was his influence on your life as well too in high school at Michael Gates, where you have like David Tyndall playing basketball, you have a bunch of these guys playing, Jonathan Hood has been there as well too, and a number of players that have actually been successful in becoming like a factory there. Like how was Gary Waterman's influence on you throughout your high school career?
Well, you mentioned my brother, Koshi. To me, every time I talk about, like, I'm a huge advocate for mentorship. And the reason for it is because I think I'm a product of mentorship, and he was probably my first, and still to this day, but he's been my mentor. Whether he decided he chose to or not, I always saw him or viewed him as a mentor, even whether I admitted it or acknowledged it or not. So that's how I know, or I know the importance and impact and power, the power that a mentorship possesses, right? Having somebody that has gone through something and can guide you, or you can just learn from their journey. And so I had that in Koshi, and I was able to see kind of practically everything that I was about to face a year before that. And so that helped me tremendously. And so when you bring up Coach Waterman, G Watts was another mentor for me. And he was a mentor that was a friend. He was a teacher, and he was a coach to me. So he knew myself, he knew my family very well. I think that obviously, as far as like trusting him when it came to coaching, and he was he was my first football coach. And so he coached me in high school, and eventually ended up coaching me in university as well. So anyways, he knew my family very well, knew me very well. And so he was one of the guys that kind of encouraged me on that route, and kept pushing me and challenging me along the way. Initially, because I always say, like, I really didn't love football when I first started playing. So having the right people around me, such as him, was instrumental for me to, really reach the level that I've reached and be who I am today.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And even going back to just being in Mississauga and going to Michael Gates, and playing with a number, or not even playing, but just being in the presence of a number of different athletes and players, not only great players, but great students as well too at Michael Gates, right? It's actually where I started teaching too. It's weird how that all comes together. But now throughout your growth from middle school into high school, like how big was the proponent of like education in your family as well too? Because I know now your appeal Peel District School Board partner when it comes to mentorship and all these. I'm going to get into that, but since you brought it up, how big was education as a component of your family?
You know what, man, Brandon, like it's always been huge. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I learned, like it's definitely not easy. At least for me, it wasn't easy. And being so hands-on and in the school system that we have here in Canada, sometimes it's not always the perfect one for each individual.
Yeah.
And so you got to find ways to one, be intrinsically motivated, and also just creative ways to enjoy what you're learning as well, right? So and the sad reality is, like, not, and I'm sure you're one of those good teachers, but not every teacher is okay. I won't even say bad, as great, but not every teacher is the best suited one for each student, right? And so for me, though, academics was huge, absolutely huge, not just necessarily for myself, but that was the norm for me and at our house. Growing up, I have two brothers. I'm the middle of three, and my older and my younger brother. That's how we grew up in our household. It was like, academics comes first, and as athletically gifted as we were, the priority was always academics, and that's what kind of my parents had instilled in us. And my father kind of made sure that was a truth and a reality for us. And so whenever we slacked in some way, shape, or form, we would get pulled literally, as a teacher, and as a coach as well, that there's a certain average that you need to maintain in order to be eligible to remain on this team, on the team for the semester, or the school year, whatever it might be. And I can proudly say I've never gone below that. However, there was a greater expectation for an average that we had to maintain at our household. And so for us, whenever my father felt like, nah, it's not good enough, then he'd have conversations with the Gary Watermans and the coaches that we had. And so because of that, though, I think that it also not only incentivized me to take my academics very serious, but also it created a deeper bond between myself and a lot of my coaches. Like, I talk to still to this day, my senior team basketball coach, Coach Kool-Aid, he to this day, he doesn't even teach no more. He's retired since, but he's always messaging me, and contacting me whenever there's something new that happens in my life and that he's read in the news, or whenever I'm coming to play in the city. He's always messaging me. And so, like I said, it forced us to kind of get closer in order to accomplish that goal, which was at one point to be able to, just enjoy sports. And so it forced us to spend a lot of time. I remember there was a point where literally, my dad didn't want us to come back and to spend too much time at practices because, he felt like it would take away from our studies. And I remember at that point, at least we had moved to a little bit further in Mississauga from, our father, Michael Gates, and what happened then, some of our teachers, my coaches actually, they volunteered and they're trying to compromise with my dad. Hey, look, what if I drop him off and they don't have to commute home? And so we spent a lot of time together, and Coach Waterman was one of those guys, but there's definitely a bunch of coaches from, my high school that to this day I'm really close with still.
That's awesome. And of course, you've been named some of those coaches, Norm St. Louis, Sam Papacatino, trying to get that word down for a long time, but no, it's a lot of these guys.
Pappas.
Yeah, Pappas. There we go. So, those coaches that, just have done a great job. And that's, I think what a lot of teachers, such as myself, try to do for a lot of these kids and have seen because of my dad and so on and so forth too, right? But that's awesome that, you had that instilled within your school. And of course, I know exactly how it goes at Michael Gates. But even going from there, so you go from Father Michael Gates, of course, you have that great relationship with Coach Waterman, G. Watts, and then, of course, going to St. Francis Xavier, kind of following the footsteps of one Jonathan Hood, who actually went from Gates to St. Francis Xavier as well too. How was he instrumental in your development as well too, and being a defensive player and all that? Because I know you started off as a receiver and some other positions, and then you kind of made the jump over to linebacker because you're just a smart player. Like, how was Jonathan Hood instrumental in your development, and what went into the decision to become like a defensive player?
Yeah, so Johnny was a really, really good friend of my brother's at first. And so the more we played, the more we kind of got interested in the game of football, which he was very, accustomed to and knowledgeable about because he had played it for so long. And my brother and I had started a little bit later. And so, we leaned on him for a lot of the things that were new to us. And he was a really good friend of like I said, my brother, and became a good friend of mine. And really became a family friend of ours. And so he went to St. FX prior to obviously my brother and I, because he's older than the both of us. But then my older brother followed suit. And I remember, Coach Waterman also getting a promotion going down there. As a matter of fact, Coach Waterman had gone to St. FX himself. So, when he got a promotion to coach at the university that he had gone to, obviously being a high school teacher, he knew the talent that was at, Gates. And when Jonathan Hood was already over there, he went with my brother the same year. And then he came to me after he left. He was like, I'm coming to get you next year when you're done. And so Jonathan Hood kind of, helped us to kind of grow in the game, but he was just a good family friend for us. And, for me, I know that initially I started as a running back. I think the simplest kind of position for, anybody that doesn't understand the rules or know the game of football, you tell somebody, hey, this is the football, take it, run, don't get hit, which is exactly how it happened for me. So it was extremely interesting. But I have to say this story too when I talk about the beginning of my the genesis of me starting to play football. They told me just that. I didn't know the rules. I didn't understand the game. I really didn't even want to play, to be honest with you, because I love basketball more. I didn't like the contact that football brought. And so they told me, hey, look, man, you'll be really good at this. Come try it out. Waterman was one of those guys. And so, my parents kind of encouraged me in that direction too. Johnny Hood, a lot of the guys that we were friends with. And so I step on the field and they tell me these, they didn't explain every rule. It could be very overwhelming if you don't understand the game. As a lot of girlfriends would probably know. But and if I have to add, my wife, I'm sure, doesn't know all the rules still to this day, but she knows enough. Anyways, so I get on the field and they tell me, take this ball. You see that big, thick white line on the other side? Yeah, you got to cross it and make sure you keep holding this ball. And it's a good thing for us. We get points. I'm like, all right, cool. Simple enough. I get on the field and the quarterback turns around, hands me the ball, and they forgot to tell me that there'd be 12 other guys that were coming to break my neck, legs, everything. And, as I try to score. And so really, I always tell people, like, the initial success that I experienced in football, came from fear. I was running in fear. I was running in fear of getting hit, right? I didn't like the contact part of the game. And so I think it's one of the biggest lessons that I took from the game of football, that, like, even if you are scared, even if you experience a little bit of fear, keep running, keep moving, right? Keep moving forward, because at the end of the day, you don't know what's on the other side, right? But you'll never find that out if you stick and you don't move. And so, one of the biggest things that fear does when it, creeps in, it leaves you paralyzed, right? And so you won't move, you won't want to move. But when you're in that position and you're not really moving forward, then again, you're never going to reach the maximum potential that you may have or that you may possess. And so very early lesson that football taught me.
Wow, that's powerful right there. And then that's a lot. I think a lot of kids can actually grasp that and use it right now going forward in their careers as well too. That's awesome. But now going from, of course, Congo, Republic of Congo. I want to make sure I get that right, and not just Congo, because I know they're different. Republic of Congo,
Yeah.
back to Mississauga, and then going to Nova Scotia and Antigua, I believe, and English and Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just that environment there, being a small city that's based around St. Francis Xavier. How did that city kind of embrace you, and how was it transitioning there? Was it not hard to transition because you already knew a number of people there? I'm always so intrigued by that.
So yeah, man, Antigonish, I don't. It's a place I don't know I would have ever stepped foot in if I hadn't gone to university there, right? Um, it's completely different, but one of the things that, played in my favor already was that I was very accustomed to new environments already at that point in my life, right? Like I mentioned earlier, and you mentioned going through so many different, two different continents and a bunch of different provinces and cities. At this point, it was just another quote unquote new environment. And so that was one thing, but for sure it was different from what I was used to, because it's completely it's absolutely smaller than the GTA. Demographics is different. So everything is completely different over there, even from the way that they treat each other and they talk to each other, and the aura is just different over there. And so it was new to me. But at the end of the day, like you said, I think the biggest thing, and one of the reasons why I was okay with the decision to go out there at St. FX, is because I already had people that I knew and I trusted over there. So it was almost like being, home away from home, even though it felt a little bit new to me. So I had my older brother already there. I had Johnny that was already there, and I had met, a few guys from the team already, because my brother and Johnny had been there for 3 years. And then, of course, having the opportunity to have, Coach Waterman, who knew me, knew my family extremely well as a coach, made the decision a little bit more manageable. So I was able to take that leap of faith.
Right, leap of faith. And even talking about leap of faith, like your relationship with your faith as well too, and how that grew. Even right now, being a man of Christ, and talking about what you have, like how instrumental is your faith in everything that you do? Is it something that developed over time, or you think and you use it in many different ways in your life? But did that start growing in the university side, or of course more when you're a little bit older? Like how, or has that always been part of your life?
I grew up in the church, so I think that my parents did their part in introducing me to the faith, and when it came time, I also chose the faith, and was very dedicated. So and this is not even to say that I'm perfect, or or anything like of the sort, but funny, I just was having a conversation about this with my wife not too long ago, and I was just sharing with her that I feel like I've operated the best for me in my life when I've been strongest in my faith, when I've been closest to Christ. And so it's been a backbone of mine, in every single stage of my life. Absolutely, it's been the biggest constant in my life as well. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not perfect, but I seek progression. And through my faith, I think that it's been able to help me to kind of remain, you find like a center of balance, so to say. And it's just helped me to move forward in a way that is humble, welcoming, and loving, to be honest with you.
Wow. Okay. Got you there. That's I'm just sitting and listening to all your words, and of course just trying to soak it in, because I think you're obviously an incredible player, CFL first round draft pick in 2011. And I'm going to get to that. You set records, tackle records at St. FX. Of course, you go on to be a draft pick in the CFL draft, and you choose to go down south. And of course, Ryan Grigson, getting, knowing exactly who you are, seeing the film, and you going down to actually play with the Indianapolis Colts. What weighed into that decision? Was it always a goal of yours in university that you wanted to be in the NFL? Like what kind of flipped the switch there in a sense?
I just did an interview recently, and people were asking me about Pinball Clemons, who and how much I've watched them kind of coming back. Him and I have a good relationship now, but how much I watched them play, and I was really ashamed in answering that. I hadn't really watched them play live, or didn't really watch too much film. Obviously, I know his reputation precedes him, off the field, but on the field as well. I didn't really watch him play much. And so the truth is, like, I didn't really watch a lot of football when I first got introduced to the game. It was, again, like I said, like, I didn't take the leap of faith and like just say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. I'm going to play this sport, and I've done my research, and I know what to do, and I know the guys that preceded me, and I know how to act and what to do in order to reach this level. So it was always like, okay, you know what, let me try it out. I don't really love it, but it's okay. And then once I got to university, and even then I got to university and started playing football and, student athlete over there. My second year, it wasn't until my second year that I can truly say that I really, truly loved the game, and I was completely immersed within the game and committed to growing and learning within the game. So even up until that point, like I didn't really know the history of football, whether it's CFL or NFL, enough to have set goals and dreams of reaching the pinnacle, right? I was just taking it one step at a time, and hey, look, it's going to allow me to go to a university and allow me to kind of help me pay for school and this and that. And so I was obviously intrigued in that, but it wasn't never hey, look, I'm going to take it to the next level. Until maybe the second year I was like, you know what, this is possible. And again, that it was thanks to, the people that were around me and my coaching staff that was extremely, encouraging and, allowed me to see kind of further. So with that being said, though, I remember, a couple of my roommates even at CineVex, they were like, who were from the GTA as well, like, you should be in the NCAA. And I was like, well, listen, first of all, I don't even know what the difference is, why I should go there. And they were really pushing for me to transfer. And I was like, nah, I don't want to lose a year of eligibility and this and that. And so it was a lot going on, but I chose to stick it out all the way through my 4 years at X. And lo and behold, obviously now I know more and I understand the game more. And I'm saying, hey, look, why not shoot for the moon, and why not, shoot for, the pinnacle? Why not go to the NFL? And so the truth is, I don't know if I even said this before in an interview or sit down, but the initial goal was definitely the NFL. And, coming out of CineFX, I got drafted. I get drafted first overall in 2011, but my late agent and I, his goal was like, Henoc, man, you're good enough to go to the NFL. And he's American as well. He was based out of DC. And, we had a really good relationship. I trusted him a lot. And he, he told me, hey, look, I went to a combine in the CFL, did really well. And then he told me, listen, I was thinking that I'd have to get you to do a few other combines or pro days, on stateside. And, from there, kind of get some NFL teams to see you. But you did enough that I can just market you with those numbers. And so he did that. And everything was working out, man. And, the way, football works at the pro level in CFL in the US and in the NFL is that the CFL starts earlier than the NFL. So the CFL combine naturally is before, the CFL draft naturally is before the NFL draft. And so I get drafted in the CFL, but I don't sign my contract because our aim was to get to the NFL. And he had already had a few conversations with, a few NFL teams who were interested. But the crazy thing is that in 2011, if anybody remembers properly, it was the year of the NFL lockout. Yes. And so there was a lockout, which made it almost impossible, extremely more difficult for a guy that didn't go to a big time school like LSU, Alabama, an SEC or whatever, to make it to that year specifically, at least, to make it into the NFL. And so, let alone, someone who went to a small school out in another country, right? So we stuck it out for as long as possible. We tried to stall, and, he was trying to find out from the different teams, hey, what the lockout would look like and how long it would last and everything. And obviously you can never really predict those things. And so lo and behold, the longer it kept going, the shorter and the harder the chances again was getting for anybody to, who was not, again, from a big time school, to get into the league at that point. And so, we made a decision right then and there to finally sign the CFL contract. As a matter of fact, I ended up signing it the day before rookie camp, literally, right? And so signed it, and then finally ended up going to Winnipeg and my contract lasted 3 years. And then after my first contract, that opportunity came. Mr. Grigson, ended up calling me, and we had great, conversation, great synergy. I visited a bunch of other NFL teams, and then ended up choosing the Colts.
The Colts, awesome. That's awesome. I no amount of research can actually give me that answer, but praise to your late manager, and of course now you're using your brother as a manager now. So of course, two people that are very key in your life, managing that side of it, and of course that game in the States, you playing now, four down football, was it a major adjustment in a sense? Because it's a different game, 65 yards when it comes to width, all that stuff. A lot of people kind of ask you, like, hey, what's the difference? Are you able to adjust to this new kind of game? Was a difference in the schemes, like different schemes? Is that hard to kind of adjust into?
At the end of the day, I would say like football is football. But yes, there are major differences, and especially being at the position that I play, right? Being a linebacker, you have to be the decision maker, so to say, on defense, right? They often say linebackers are, we're the quarterbacks of the defense, and so to at the time going down to the U.S. and having to learn all there's a few nuances that you need to get accustomed to in order to be comfortable. And, playing in the CFL, and one of the things that you need to possess to be a good linebacker is anticipation, right? And I love to talk about this because that was one of the biggest things that I found when I first went to Indianapolis, was that I was growing in anticipation. My anticipation was, level was at a high level when I was playing in 3 down, because that's the game that I knew. And the more that I played, the more comfortable you get, the more you can anticipate, the more that you see, the more you can kind of predict, okay, well, when you got 3 receivers here and 2 there, then if they, a lot of the times these are the combinations that usually come from it. And, you can anticipate those things. And so going to the US, it was a lot different because I had no real previous experiences to kind of get me to a place of anticipation and predicting things that were, about to happen from a offensive perspective. And so that was one of the first things that kind of got me lost. And then the next thing was like, okay, I didn't really have that anticipation. I'm supposed to be the leader, but I'm not fully confident in everything that I'm seeing, because I'm not, again, comfortable, but also not used to seeing what I was seeing at the time. So one of the big things for me, I know, like, again, as a linebacker, you got to call the strength, right? Whether it's strong left or strong right, not to be too technical with everything though. Like, as a linebacker, you got to call the strength. So you got to let everybody on defense know, hey, look, most plays on defense are dictated based on the strength, and the strength is dictated a lot of the times in the US where the tight end is located, right? And so because a tight end in the US is such a primary position by which a lot of things are, he's so focal to the offense that, we call on defense a lot of the things based on where he's aligned. And so for me, up in Canada, you don't really see many tight ends, right? And so it was hard for me to even locate the tight end and kind of call the strength to where the tight end is located. And so there's different things such as, like, if the tight end is to the left, you call strong left. Tight end is to the right is strong right. But then there's like situations where when the tight end is to the left and there's all the receivers on the right, it's a Detroit formation that was really strong right. So like all these things that I didn't really know, where, the rookies that were, American as well, who had played that game their whole lives, it was something that was easy and that came to them easy for them. So for me, it was like relearning from scratch. And then, not to mention the fact that it's at the highest level possible, right? But again, like, I had some great coaches. Fitzy, who was my linebacker coach, is probably one of the best coaches in the NFL as far as linebackers is concerned. And I don't even say that just because he was mine. I really think so, because again, I went on multiple other teams afterwards and met some other coaches, and he was just the man, and he was so detail oriented, and he really loved and cared about the game enough to like always spend more time than was necessary. And I know this because I went to Dallas after Indianapolis, and I remember like the way that he was, even in training camp where we practically are up all day, right? We would finish a meeting. We'd finish a meeting, have practice, food, another meeting, until it's like literally 11 o'clock, and you do it all over again starting the next day at 6. And so, but even in that time, he would always encourage, everybody to kind of, hey, if you got a question, come on in. And if you ask him a question, he'd never give you like a quick response to try to kind of get rid of you. Like, he literally sits down with you and goes from 0 and teaches you all the way to 100. And so He really loved the game and cared for it. So I had some great people around me that kind of helped me in that process as well.
Wow, incredible. And of course, you were mentioning Fitzy. It's of course, like you know, you've had an episode with him as well too, Mike Singletary, right? So of course you had, well, you have some great things there, but Fitzy is definitely one that I think a lot of people do definitely know. Right? I'm getting my names mixed up there, but going from, you know, of course, you know, getting signed with the Blue Bombers and going down to Indianapolis and coming back to the CFL, playing in Saskatchewan and in Montreal as well too, right? I saw some videos of yourself and your daughter saying, "Hey, I'm just an Alouettes," and they're like, "No, now we're in Argo, we're doing this," right? So coming back home, or pretty much coming back home and you know, being closer to home, being closer to the family as well too. You know, I'm pretty sure that was a big relief for you as well, coming back to Toronto. Big relief right now, and you're seeing it now during the pandemic. But how have you been dealing with this pandemic, and how have you been dealing with everything at home? Is it much more manageable now? Like, how was your experience with this, everything going on?
No, I mean, it's been a lot of uncertainties, you know, certainly with the CFL and everything. But I just had actually CineFX reached out to me yesterday. To be honest with you, they asked me to make a little to send them a little message to the athletes over there, because it was an online banquet as opposed to a regular one that is at the athletic banquet at the end of the year. And one of the things that I said there is the fact that um, life is really about adapting, right? Adaptation. It's one of the most important skills you need to possess in life to be successful. And I learned that again through the game of football. One of the best games that, not one, most, you know, all of the best games that I've had as a pro have been the ones that where I was under a coach that knew how to adapt, that knew how to adjust, right? Because you can always have a great game plan in a game. You go into a game and you know the game plan very well. You understand it. You're confident in it. It sounds good. It looks good, and you're ready for the team. And then boom, there's some things that just don't click well. And so the best coaches, they come into halftime and they say, okay, when we do this, they keep doing that. So what we're going to do, I know we've been practicing all week to kind of run this play. We're going to do this one instead. Do you guys understand? And they teach it to you in a span of 10 minutes, right? But those coaches are the best coaches. But it's the same thing in life too, right? You got to learn how to adapt. You got to learn how to adjust. If you're not capable of doing that, like, life is not it's not linear to where, A goes to B, goes to C, goes to, you can't really, there's a lot of things that happens in life that you can't predict. And this just so happened to be something that happened that was common to really the whole world that nobody could have predicted. And so it's about adjusting, it's about adapting, and most of all, it's about growing. And so, again, that was part of my message yesterday that I shared with the athletes at CineFX, but I was also just telling them that, the important thing is that you need to focus on growth, right? And that's really what I've been doing. Probably everybody, if you're an athlete, you probably heard it said before that, I don't even think you got to be an athlete, but you've heard it said before that, tough times don't last, but tough people do. But the truth is, it's never been about the length of the tough time, how long is that tough time? It's not about that more so than it is you outlasting the tough time, right? And so while you're trying to outlast the tough time, though, you have to progress, you have to grow. And that's what I've been trying to do. And I've been kind of getting myself involved with a lot of different things, outside of the game of football, which, has been really my goal. And again, I have my hands full with my girls, and trying to take care of my family. My wife at home has also been taking a lot of my time as well.
Absolutely, man. It's exactly growing with the time, and I think that's a great message to kind of end off with, right? I really appreciate you sharing all of this with me, and of course our followers and our listeners as well. 2019 most outstanding Canadian. I think that's a great kind of feat to have in a sense, and I think you even deserved it in more years, right? So, but thank you so much, Henoc. Everything. You're obviously a mentor, and appeal community partner. So hopefully we can have you around in our studio, and of course in my school too, in a sense, so you can talk to them. But I really appreciate you having you on and you sharing, and I really look forward to even, connect with you in the future as well too with some more initiatives, man. But appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, Brandon.
No problem at all. This is the First and 10 podcast. Keep balling.
All right.